Well, I first encountered Dark Knight Returns when it came out. I actually bought the books off the stands. I remember what a big deal it was to get those books. It looked different, it felt different, it read different. It was a completely different experience than everything else we had out there.
I'd kind of given up on comic books, kind of felt I had outgrown them, and that book came out. It completely opened my eyes to the potential of the medium and inspired me to actually want to become a comic book professional. So after I graduated, I tried to get into comics.
Growing up in New York, even though the story was sort of bombastic and over the top, the mutants were sort of corollaries for the kind of crime that my mother and father were afraid of in the 80s in New York. And the Cold War aspect, you know, the whole idea that we were locked in this sort of nuclear annihilation trajectory with Russia, it was all the stuff that kept me up at night as a kid, made real in Batman, and it made me realize how real Batman could be.
I got my first copy of it, I loved it, and just, you know, the art, it blew me away. And it was a big influence on me. I didn't actually read it until years later, that's so me all the way around. I love the art first, and when I actually read the story, I remember I think I had been working already for 6 years, and then I realized what everybody was talking about.
I was in the hallways of DC when Dick Giordano asked me if I wanted to ink Frank Miller on this big Batman project. And it took me like 2 seconds to say yes, of course.
I actually had to go to my dad and be like, I don't think this is really Batman. And he read it, he's like, oh my gosh. And I remember my dad even reflecting on it as well, but it definitely changed my perspective in an amazing way on what comics could do.
I love the disparity of our opinions of that, because I looked at it and I was like, finally, I've discovered who Batman really is.
Now, I love all the old Batman stuff, all the different incarnations, the funny stuff, the scary stuff, the weird alien stuff. But, you know, this is another take on it. Simply making Batman the cool character that we all knew he was for the rest of the world is an amazing accomplishment.
It resonates more for me now how Bruce was reacting. Like, there's one thing where he goes, now the kid shows me what a fast kick is. Because now I'm seeing that, because I got a young son at home, and he's getting bigger and stronger and tougher. But, you know, the youth does have the speed and the power, and the bloom fades on us all, right? And so it's just cool and timeless for me.
It sounds very boring, but on some level, being a writer is like a plumber, knowing like what pipes go into what. Nobody has ever put the pipes together better than Frank Miller did in that comic in terms of paneling. He used 16 panel grids, he used first-person narrative, he used every trick he could and always organic to the story. So to me, it reads as a very experimental book, just in terms of how a writer puts a story together. That to me is what makes it longer lasting, is that you can always look at it and say, okay, there's a trick I want to use, there's something else I want to do as a writer.
I think it's one of those apexes where people look at it and go, hey, this is where we're going, you know? It's not necessarily where we are, it's where we're going.
One of the moments that stood out to me and actually affected the way I draw Batman now is when Batman challenged Superman and he had the armor and he wired himself up to have all of Gotham City power. And I love that armor so bad that when I go, okay, I get to draw Batman now, I love that bullnose helmet so much. I go, I'm gonna get as close to that as possible.
My favorite moment is probably at the end when Clark Kent hears that heartbeat at the funeral.
When Batman and Superman fight, because it really, I mean, it changes how you think about Superman. And it really underlines both how fragile, you know, Batman is as a human, and also the fact he just kept getting up and kept getting up and kept getting up.
The fight in the mud with the mutant leader, that just, you know, and I'm a big military nut too, so when I saw that big tank coming down and, you know, seeing him open up with the machine guns and then the rubber bullets, and then just, you know, the whole operating table. I mean, it's almost like I'm reading it right now from back all that long time ago.
There's this incredible moment when, I mean, spoiler alert, but Batman has had just beat to no business, and he has brought Carrie into the car with him, and he's just telling her, oh, you look like a kid. And she's like, I'm a kid. And he's like, my name's Bruce. And Alfred's like, what are you doing? And I just loved that moment where this old hero is at a point where he wants to exchange knowledge. He wants to not be alone. He wants to pass on some kind of legacy. And that was at the heart for me of like what the Batman's role was at that point in his life and his career in the culture.
My original favorite moment was when he fights the Joker. I love the end, the darkness of the Joker breaking his own neck. I mean, that moment, it chilled me. But now I think as I get older and having written Batman, it's the moment when he, at the very end of the first chapter, where he faces Harvey, and Harvey says, do you see me? And he says, yes, I see a reflection. The writing, the symmetry of that arc, of that beginning was just so perfect. I love it so much.
You know, my favorite moment is where this woman gets on the subway and she has crayons for her kids. I liked it, because I thought it was so representative of what Frank does. In a panel or two, he can sort of trigger your imagination. I mean, that woman appeared in like 2 panels. We never saw her again. But I had that feeling of, the kids at home waiting for the mom and the news of the subway exploding.
There's a shot of Bruce Wayne and he's just obsessed and he's running through Wayne Manor and he knocks over this big statue. And it just felt very Shakespearean. There's this shot where Superman's lifting this tank and it's just this epic shot, and it really kind of shows the strengths of his art. It's not necessarily about structure, it's about the boldness of the silhouette, the power, the imagery. It's very expressionistic, and that just blew me away.
One of them is when Batman rescues Carrie Kelly from danger, and he simply holds her in midair, embracing her like she's a child, and just repeats the line, good soldier," several times, because I felt it was a really father-daughter moment that I enjoyed.
I think of pop culture and the explosion of comic books and how that's really become a foundation for pop culture. Dark Knight Returns, the work that Frank did, I think is arguably one of the top 3-5 books that impacted pop culture. He brought new life into the lore and introduced new themes that still resonate today. When people talk about dark and gritty comic books, it all started in the mid-'80s with Dark Knight Returns.
That's it for now, but if you want more DC All Access, check out some of those videos over there and click that big old red subscribe button down there.
Plus, remember to check out the new DC Fans YouTube page that puts the spotlight on DC fans. That means you.